While a police officer was patrolling a neighborhood, a group of migrants knocked him off his motorcycle and viciously stoned and beat him almost to death with iron rods. After the officer was forced to brandish his firearm to escape alive, the police department's disturbing response to the lynch mob has caused outrage. Thanks to France's willingness to indefinitely resettle mostly Muslim asylum seekers, it is one of the fastest-growing European countries. Of course, along with its festering Islamic population comes the disproportionate rise of violent crime. While the French liberal government is busy covering up reports of migrant crime and Sharia law no-go zones, the authorities who are charged with upholding the laws are now pleading for help in vain. On Saturday, the mainstream media widely ignored one of the most disturbing reports concerning Europe's refugee crisis. In what signals an upcoming civil war, a police officer, patrolling a predominantly Muslim neighborhood, was brutally assaulted by a crowd of migrants in an attack similar to the mob justice that often occurs in Muslim countries. French outlet Actu 17 reports that a law enforcement officer was dragged from his motorcycle by around 30 migrants who planned to lynch him in Sickening on July 14. The migrants threw heavy stones at the policeman and beat his body with iron bars until he drew his service pistol and fired into the crowd, striking a migrant in the stomach. The officer's face was reportedly covered in blood, and his helmet was split after sustaining a blow to the head from a large rock. The officer suffered severe injuries during the violent attack before reinforcements could intervene and rescue him. Most disturbingly, the police department has made no arrests apart from an 18-year-old injured suspect, but only because he was fleeing a police checkpoint. Instead, the department appears more concerned with concealing the identities of the perpetrators than charging them. In addition, the Ministry of Economy and Finance is going ahead with plans to cut nearly $1 billion from the military budget of the Ministry of Armies. The wounded officer encountered the wrath of the mob after pursuing a migrant who was fleeing the checkpoint on a motorcycle. The 35-year-old criminal later died from injuries, but the 18-year-old who was shot in the stomach during the lynching survived. Reports state that 13 officers and soldiers have been wounded over the weekend as the war in Sickening rages between local law enforcement and Muslim migrants. Although migrant crime continues to increase, arrests are declining exponentially. On July 13 and 14, 897 cars were torched by migrants, but only 368 people were held in custody, which is a sharp decrease from the 577 individuals who were arrested for burning 855 vehicles last year. Over the course of several episodes of urban violence, our security forces have been the target of intolerable attacks, the perpetrators of which will have to be answered in court just like the perpetrators of vehicle fires, which, of course, are always too many, said Pierre-Henri Brandit. To the 13 officials and soldiers wounded the last 2 nights, the minister offers his complete support. He concluded, "Parts of France have been transformed into Sharia governances devoid of women, federal law enforcement, and non-Muslim activity. These areas are not only considered dangerous for non-Muslims and tourists to venture, but even police officers don't dare cross their boundaries. France is experiencing all the contributions of Muslim migrants and the effects of their own push for multiculturalism. Unfortunately, not all cultures are akin to our own. In fact, there are barbaric cultures that condone religious persecution, slavery, rape, pedophilia, and murder, which are all justified and commanded in Islam. Sadly, it has come to the point at which even the authorities can no longer protect civilians from the tiny minority of Muslim militants, once again proving that the number of Muslims who are moderate is irrelevant. Please share the story and tell us what you think by clicking one of the buttons below. We want to hear your voice.